Boker Tov, good morning, Lishana Tova, a good year to all of you, Ketiva Tova, your inscription should be a good one for a good year. Last night I spoke about what do we do when the diamonds of our lives get scratched and damaged. I spoke about the Akedah, the story of the binding of Isaac, which we'll read tomorrow, and a bit about the Unatana Tokef that we'll recite in Musaf today and tomorrow. The Akedah is a horrific story where God commands Abraham to sacrifice his son Yitzhak. Yitzhak is not only Abraham's son, but personifies all of Abraham's hopes and dreams. He is Abraham's future. There was a lot at stake. And I spoke last night about the Akedah through the prism of vision. I read Abraham as a person of great vision, of great spiritual capacity, and of resilience and creativity in confronting life. He could see life from angles to find the best possible avenue for the moment. God promised to show Abraham the mountain, but did not actually have to, since Abraham's insight knew which mountain it was. Abraham could sense that God would see to the ram, that there was a way through this. Abraham saw a ram that was not in his sight line, but rather behind him, meaning that he sensed the possibilities of the moment. The entire episode takes place in Eretz Moriah, the land of vision. And Abraham names the specific location to honor visioning, encouraging all of us toward grander vision. Yitzhak did not have the vision to move on. He does not see the mountain, does not see the ram or its possibility, does not even look up. When Abraham descends the mountain, Yitzhak is not with him. Yitzhak has seemingly gone into stasis, paralysis, unable to function in the face of trauma. And later on, the story's arc repeats in the next generation when the Torah tells that Isaac's eyes grow dim. He has lost his ability for spiritual insight and cannot even tell his own two children apart. And he ends up nearly sacrificing his son's Yaakov's life, just as Abraham nearly sacrificed his. So today I'd like to go back into the Akedah story a bit and to speak about the lessons that Abraham learns, and especially that we have learned throughout these 18 months of the pandemic. First, the narrator informs us that HaYam nisat Abraham, that God tested Abraham. We noted last night that actually both Abraham and Yitzhak were tested to see how they would respond to intense life challenge. The text is clear, however, that neither Abraham nor Yitzhak knew they were being tested. And quite often in life, we do not know we've been tested until we're in the thick of it, or sometimes not even until afterwards. And then we can ask ourselves, did I respond like Abraham with resilience, perspective, and faith? Or did I respond like Yitzhak and withdraw from the world, hiding myself from it? Pirkei Avot tells us that God tested Abraham 10 times. 10 is much higher than the Jewish number of completeness, which is 7. So Pirkei Avot is letting us know that beyond the Akedah, Abraham had a fullness of life challenges to confront and pass through. And so do all of us. At Day Toledo High School, I never used the T, Q, or E words with my high school students. I never gave tests, quizzes, or examinations. Instead, I referred to them as opportunities. Tests, especially life tests, are opportunities. They are opportunities to show ourselves capable of rising to the highest standards. A challenge is an opportunity for faith and personal growth. We were all challenged these past 18 months. Did our faith help us through, or did we find it difficult to access? And in what ways do we find ourselves growing? The term used for test here is nisa, and it is related to the word nes, meaning a banner, something elevated high above. In what ways did we elevate ourselves during the pandemic? I would like to share what I think we have all learned with a point to how HaYam exemplified those lessons. I know that I learned and grew, essentially because of all of you. Lesson 1, family matters more than we realized, and that is equally true for our HaYam family. Families could not always be together. In fact, mostly could not. But we learned how to spend face time with loved ones, from our adult children to our youngest grandchildren. You can share your life's wisdom even from a distance. Here, we realized that our CAH family needed time with each other. So we first decided to change our bi-monthly Shabbat services to weekly so that we could see each other and check in with each other more often. Knowing that that would not suffice during the pandemic, I spoke with our adult ed VP, Fran Landy, and we came up with a plan so that there would be activities at least 5 days a week, every week of the pandemic. And we ended up with 2 days, with 2 days of the week that had 2 activities. Mort Resnick led sessions on Monday and Thursdays. Fran and I each taught on different days of the week. And Andrea Massian held her weekly sing-along for hope and healing. We kept Wednesdays open for special events, such as our significant Jewish book club discussions and my teaching about the Holocaust through music. We had more activities than synagogues 7 times our size. We succeeded because we all depended upon one another. Having these many classes and activities was a response to our human need for interdependence. Globally too, whether we like it or not, we are all in this together. And our success or failure depends upon everyone continuing to do their part, including protocols. But I want to speak a little about the Motzi prayer. When we recite Motzi over bread, it helps me to realize how many people work so hard so that I could have challah on my Shabbat table. I now know the term for those people, essential workers. I hope we never forget how much we depend on farm workers, truck drivers, factory workers, grocery clerks, public service employees, teachers, and so many more. When one part of the system breaks down, we all suffer. It's important that we all work for the greater good. We at CAH also extended ourselves beyond our own boundaries. Seeing a sister conservative synagogue with no services or activities, we invited Congregation Beth Shalom of Bermuda Dunes to join us for anything and everything. We have joined together for Seder. We've had joint study programs before last year's High Holy Days. We have partnered for Leil Tikkun Shavuot. We've attended each other's services. New friendships have been forged. And while some initially asked questions about who these people were, everyone now acknowledges how much we gained by reaching out. So lesson number 1, family and community on all levels matter. And reaching out gets as good as it gives. Lesson number 2, self-care is not self-indulgence. 18 months ago, America became a hibernation nation. Canned, dry, and instant soup sales quickly rose 37%. Premium chocolate sales grew by 21% in the first 6 months of the pandemic. The chocolate industry thanks you, Ruthie. The athleisure market Sweatpants, yoga wear, and such saw its U.S. revenue last year push past an estimated $105 billion. Self-indulgent? No, no, no. It's self-care. Many of us grew up learning, at least by example of our parents, that doing things for yourself is selfish and inconsiderate. In my household, selfish and inconsiderate people were among the worst people that one could be with or associate with. I deeply appreciate my parents' emphasis on caring for others, but pampering is vital to well-being for yourself and for those around you. Whether it is permission to take long bubble baths, guilty, tinkering in the backyard shed, enjoying herbal tea, or seeing noon come while still in your robe. Isabel Gillies, author of Cozy, The Art of Arranging Yourself in the World, reminds us that being good to yourself offers a necessary reprieve from whatever horrors threaten us from out there. So it's okay to use comfort as a crutch. Comfort will ease us back to life. Some companies are already hawking pajamas you can wear in public. Not only does self-care have positive outcomes for you, claims psychologist Rochelle Concepcion, but it also sets an example to younger generations as something we all need to establish and maintain for your entire life. Fran's Thursday night Midot class offers great insight into what our soul's needs are, the types of strength that comprise our character, and how we can all grow in very personal areas and share our deeper wisdom. In the first weeks of class, I noticed that it was hard for some people to speak from a personal place. Many wanted to intellectualize the discussion or present quite implausible scenarios to avoid sharing personal feelings and experiences. That changed rather quickly, and that class on Midot has become a great forum for personal growth. For some, the self-indulgence translated into DIY, do-it-yourself projects, painting a room, installing a light fixture, learning to cook, indulging a hobby. All of this is part of the second lesson. We must take care of ourselves, and we must consider those who do, not as selfish, but as role models. Third, we befriended technology, and there's no going back, and embracing it shows our resilience. Before the pandemic, standard operating procedure for most older Americans was to buy apples at the grocery, try shoes on first before buying, have your doctor measure your blood pressure, and see that hot new movie at the theater. Now we have food delivered, we buy clothes online, we do telehealth, and binge on Netflix. Popular food delivery apps more than doubled their earnings last year. PayPal reported that its fastest growing user group was people over 50. And Chase said about half of its new online users were 50 and over. This trend will probably not change no matter when the pandemic ends. We at CAH have had members work with other members to upgrade their computer skills, and we had town halls to teach Zoom. And over this time, we have used technology to enrich our community. We had funerals and Shiva gatherings on Zoom, and Ufrah on Zoom, and Passover Seders on Zoom. Envisioning how important technology will continue to be, we assessed our situation, and as Brenda reminded us, we built a new website, which just recently went public, and we also got Wi-Fi in our building so we could hold these services via YouTube. And I join Brenda in expressing my deep gratitude to our donors, Janice and Amnon Anaron Ezer and family, Phil Barton, Mark Goldman, Donna Gustafson, Miriam and Daryl Mack, Ruth Resnick, Lee Rothschild, Lois Lebman, Judy and Rick Newberger, as well as an anonymous angel. You, along with a grant from the Pacific Southwest region of the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, have made this come true for all of us. Please check out congregationamhayam.com. A number of people from outside our community have already approached me, called me, texted me, emailed me to compliment us on this achievement and ask how we pulled it off. We should all feel 10 feet tall. And of course, it was pulled off mostly because of Mark Goldman, Miriam Mack, and webmaster Mark Rich, who all put in so much time both thinking through the creative end and working on the technological nuts and bolts. Yashar kochachem. With improved technology, we need not feel so isolated. The number of adults 50 and older who felt lonely doubled from 2018 to 2020 and grew worse from there as the pandemic proceeded. I hope this is not true for anyone in our CAH family, but if you do feel lonely, please do reach out. There is no shame in reaching out for help. It is a sign of maturity and depth of character that you reach out. We have tried to be in contact with our members, with board members, calling members throughout the pandemic, mipa'am lefa'am, as we felt we could, while still managing our own lives. But I also know how resilient you are. Dr. Dilip Jest of UC San Diego's Sam and Rose Stein Institute for Research on Aging reports that research shows that older adults have handled the COVID psychologically better than younger adults. With age comes experience and wisdom. You have all lived through difficult times. In fact, older adults with high levels of empathy, compassion, decisiveness, and self-reflection score lowest than any other age group for loneliness. So our third lesson is not just that we've befriended technology, but that you have all adapted. Planning is good, goals are great, but adaptability is the key to it all. Plans get ruined, goals get delayed, or get realized in unexpected ways. So how will you handle this? When you're adaptable, you figure it out. And now we know we indeed can. We figured out a lot of stuff in this past 18 months. We should be proud of this. We made it. And now we know we can make it through whatever comes. Family, self-care, adaptability, learning new things. Finally, going through challenging experience often leads us to think more deeply about our core beliefs. Whether it's our faith, our personal relationships or health, the work we do, or how we spend our free time. We now realize that life can be fragile. Time with others cannot be taken for granted, and that what we do only matters if we do it and make it matter. For me, my faith has deepened tremendously during these past 18 months, and I'm the rabbi. I have felt closer to God, and my belief in life's essential goodness are stronger because I have been through this pandemic and because I've been through this pandemic with you. Now, most discussions and commentaries on the Akedah end quite reasonably with Avraham staying in Beersheba. In fact, almost every book or discussion I checked, that's where it ended. Nonetheless, the last Aliyah we'll read tomorrow adds a short section, a report on the births of a number of relatives in far-off Mesopotamia, births that occurred at various different times, quite apart. A lot of these names are obscure. Tevach, Gacham, Tachash, Ma'acha. We never hear of them again. And Rashi claims that this section was written only to tell us of the birth of Rivka, who would later marry Yitzhak. But if so, why was it necessary to include all of the seemingly superfluous information? The whole section could have been reduced to one verse. After these things, Abraham was told that Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, was born. But yet we have a whole aliyah, not just one verse. Now I understand this passage in the light of the pandemic. By including this seemingly extraneous material, we learn that through and beyond a traumatic event comes an ordinary day, an ordinary week, an ordinary year. After enduring a pandemic, we necessarily return and look forward to humdrum existence. Life continues. The list of names once seemed superfluous and irrelevant, now take on special meaning as they did to Abraham in the wake of the Akedah. On Sunday, my dear cousins Jeff and Sari from Montreal called to wish Stephen and I a Shana Tova. But not only to do that, they wanted to share the news, like we hear in the report that I just mentioned, that they are expecting 2 grandchildren, one in 5 weeks and one in January. Jeff is the son of my Uncle Izzy and Aunt Celia, both Holocaust survivors and both of blessed memory. We, like Abraham, were delighted to hear this news of impending births. It speaks to me of my uncle and aunt's resilience through a traumatic time that lasted much longer than 18 months, and that light and joy can still be had in its aftermath. Finally, I want to return to the Unatana Tokef. Last night, I spoke of the importance of utshuva, utfilah, utzdaka, ma'avirin et roa hagzerah. Repentance, prayer, and righteousness remove the severity of the decree. This line tells us not that we can ever remove the decree or change our reality, but that we can limit the long-lasting effect that suffering can have on us. Our deeds matter, and they can help us to raise our own banner and elevate our lives. We can pass the test. But I want to focus on ma'avirin, the word in the very middle of that 7-word sentence. It is the core, the heart of the statement, and it comes from the root of avar, which runs through the entire Unatana Tokef really smartly. We don't have time to look at all the back texts that are sort of resonated here. Perhaps in a study session we'll do that. But its basic meaning of avar is to pass. So in our key verse, it is telling us that repentance, prayer, and righteous action, ma'avirin, help us get through, pass through the awfulness of the decree. Help us get past the pandemic. But not only this, because avar is not just passing through, but has a sense of resiliency and creative betterment in it. In modern Hebrew, avar al means to edit or improve a text. So our deeds, our self-indulgent, our caring, our depending on others, our enabling others to rely on us, can help us not only pass through the pandemic, but pass on to another level of meaningful living. They can improve our lives. They edit and improve our personal Sefer HaYam, our own book of life. Perhaps that is why Abraham is called the first Ivri, Hebrew, and our people's language is Ivrit, Hebrew, from the word avar. This connotes that we Jews have passed through many tests, and that at each one, we have not only gotten through, but we have thrived. We have solidified, not hardened. We have offered, not imposed. We have contributed, not dominated. We have deepened, not isolated. As we celebrate this day on the first day of Rosh Hashana, the first day in our sanctuary for Rosh Hashana in 2 full years, let us celebrate us. May this be a year of continued emphasis on family, nuclear, synagogue, and beyond. May this be a year of continued self-care, self-help, self-love. May this be a year of continued reliance on each other, of continued community. May this be a year of continued resilience, flexibility, and adaptability. May this be a year of continued assessment of what matters,